Hello, good people. Please give me a second um, to share this video. I hope I'm catching you at the right time. I hope you're in the good mood. I hope you have had a pleasant morning or pleasant day. Whatever mood, whatever time of day I catch you in, I'm hoping you're doing good. If you're watching live, please comment, say where you're watching from, and I'll say hello to you. Give you a shout out. So anyway, let me share this video and I will get started. Yeah, it says has been shared on my timeline. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good people. My name is Martin Imoragewa Mureidi, and today I'm coming to you live. If you're watching on Facebook and recorded on the other platforms, welcome. Please comment, like, share, subscribe, do all the good things that would give me the good jiggly feelings on the inside. Otherwise, I hope you're doing good. I'm blessed to be here today, and that is why I come to you with another story. And it comes from this book called Hyena. And I was inspired to read this book because I was browsing at the library a few days ago, and I came across this book, and it reminded me of my friend Eli from El Salvador. Shout out to G-Fly. I haven't seen him in a minute. I hope he's doing okay. And my friend G-Fly, the only thing he wants from me is for me to get him a hyena. And I told him I don't know anything about hyenas, but he told me I'm African, I'm Kenyan, I should. So when I came across this book, I was glad, I was grateful, and I decided to check it out. And I'm gonna read for you guys a chapter. Chapter 3 is called Hyena Magic. I hope you like it. The annals of natural history explored in the previous chapter show that the hyena has long been characterized as one of the untouchables of the animal world. In its mythological and magical roles, too, this unusual beast is widely reviled as a grotesque, hideous scavenger that battens on decay. In every unhallowed realm, whether graveyard or battlefield, hyenas are rumored to be skulking, raising loathsome prospects, and, according to reputation, excremental smells. Observing the number of beasts that feature in cultural mythologies, anthropologists from J.G. Fraser onwards have pointed out that animals are vehicles for embodying emotionally charged ideas. Foolishly, we humans tend to conflate ugliness with evil, and since we find the hyena viscerally repulsive, we class it with every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth, all condemned by Leviticus as abominations. 11:41. But watch out, as Freud suggests, whatever we repress will come back to bite us, and the hyena's jaws are built to crush bone. Most people are not aware that the female spotted hyena has unusually formed genitals, and do not automatically consider hyenas to be anatomical pariahs. Still, rumors about hyena hermaphrodites have never completely disappeared. Interestingly, however, these myths have crossed over from the spotted hyena to her striped and brown cousins, which in folklore are also associated with gender bending and weird sex magic. Even anthropologists rarely differentiate between spotted and striped hyenas when both species inhabit the same territory, and in many local languages, both types go by the same name. Some have speculated that stories about the African spotted hyena, orally transmitted by traders, nomads, and migrants, traveled north and east from Ethiopia, for example, to Western and Southern Asia, where they were applied to the local striped hyena population. Another possibility is that spotted hyenas were once common in Asia, and although they are no longer found there, traditional beliefs remain and have been transferred by later generations onto striped hyenas. Either way, no species of hyena has escaped denigration. According to anthropologists, the ritual value of animals is deeply connected to the taboos and fetishes we developed around them, which in turn affect whether or not we make use of their bodies. The hyena's body, shrouded in taboo, has been the source of fetish objects ever since the ancient Greeks and Romans used its blood, excrement, rectum, genitalia, eyes, tongue, hair, skin, and fat to make charms that both averted evil and promised fertility. In the ancient world, it was believed that the genitalia of a hyena would hold a couple peaceably together and that a hyena's anus, worn as an amulet on the upper arm, would make its male possessor irresistible to women. In his History of Animals, Aristotle notes that in making fetishes and spells, the Magi have held in the highest admiration the hyena of all animals, and goes on to list the qualities of charms and totems made from the animals of this unusually potent, from the body of this unusually potent beasts. Similarly, Pliny observes, barrenness in women is cured by a hyena eye, taken in food with licorice and dill, conception being guaranteed in 3 days. He also points out that a hyena's genitals, taking honey, stimulates desire, and even when men hate intercourse with women, since with the peace of the whole household is assured by keeping in the home these genitals and a vertebra, with the hide still adhering to them. Today, in Afghanistan, India, and many parts of Asia, striped hyenas, although widely feared, are nevertheless associated with fertility, and their body parts play an important role in sex magic. The thick hair of the mane and tail is especially long and elastic, and the association of such hair with female beauty has made it an important component of love charms, while the animal itself, ironically, is considered hideous. The striped hyena's blood is used in folk medicine, and its tongue is supposed to fight tumors. In the Pakistani province of Sindh, the local Muslims place the tooth of a striped hyena over the charms in order not to lose the milk's blessing, and the Bedouin of Arabia use striped hyena meat as medicine. In Iranian folklore, a dried hyena pelt is considered a potent charm to change the heart of a reluctant lover, and in the Khyber area, burned hyena fat is applied to a man's genitals, or sometimes taken orally to ensure virility. Among the people of Western Sudan, the possession of a striped hyena's nose is a magical way to guarantee a good harvest, and the tail will help you get a woman of your choice. In Afghanistan, the vulva, kus, of a female striped hyena is believed to have aphrodisiac powers, and some mullahs will wear a hyena kus wrapped in silk under their armpits for a week. Among the Pakhtun, the kus is kept in vermilion powders, and if a man wants to win the object of his desire, he is supposed to peer at her through his now scarlet kus, made into a sort of monocle. This apparently the source of a dowry expression. It will happen as smoothly as if you'd looked through a striped hyena's vulva. In a similar display of sympathetic magic, homosexuals and bisexuals are said to attract young men by means of a freshly killed striped hyena's penis or rectum, if possible, cut out of a freshly dead animal while the anal sphincter is still twitching, giving rise to the Pashto phrase for someone who attracts many lovers. He has the anus of a striped hyena. The Himba people of Namibia, who live closely with spotted hyenas, believe the phallic shape of hyena genitalia indicates they are all males and therefore homosexual. They are characterized in Himba folklore as Omayova, a word meaning acting contrary to normal behavior, repellent, stigmatized, and set apart. Anthropologist D.P. Crandall, a specialist on the Himba, explains that this is because the hyena's presumed physiological abnormality is compounded with a moral classification that creates a strong correspondence between the homosexual and the hyena. Homosexuality, Crandall adds, is almost unfathomable among the Himba, though there are often rumors of homosexuals living in far-off villages or distant towns. According to anthropologist Alma Gottlieb, the West African Beng believe that if you happen to find a dead spotted hyena with its rectum still moving in and out, you must immediately plug and quieten the anus. Otherwise, you might be struck by the curse of perpetual laughter, which is a sure sign of your impending death. Gottlieb's informant told her the following story. One day, perhaps about a century ago, a hyena had come in from the forest and defecated on the ground, causing the entire village to be broken. Had the village not been evacuated, it would soon have been the locus of innumerable deaths. Thus, the villagers immediately abandoned the old village and chose the present site. The hyena has long been associated with necromancy and with evil spirits, no doubt because, as Aristotle claims, it is exceedingly fond of putrefied flesh and will burrow in a graveyard to gratify this propensity. True, the hyena's tendency to scavenge for food means that it often lives in the proximity of death and dead bodies, though these are rarely human ones, except those on battlefields. Nevertheless, its scavenging tendencies, nocturnal habits, and uncanny ability to chew and absorb bone are all probably the source of folklore concerning the hyena's dark magic. Aristotle, in On Marvelous Things Heard, says of the hyena that when it sees some wild beast before itself being seen or steps on the shadow of a man, produces speechlessness and fixes them on the spot in such a way that they cannot move their body. It is said that they do this in the case of dogs also. According to J.G. Fraser, the ancients supposed that in Arabia, If a hyena trod on a human's shadow, it deprived him of the power of speech and motion. And if a dog, standing on a roof in the moonlight, cast a shadow on the ground and a hyena trod on it, the dog would fall down as if dragged with a rope. Aristotle also advanced the notion that hyena's neck consisted of one single, jointless bone. According to the author of the article in Harper's New Monthly Magazine, 1854, this is an assertion which, it is almost needless to add, is to the full as groundless as to that this peculiar bone proved of great efficacy in magical invocation, which belief is to this day current among the superstitious Arabs, who, when they slay one of these animals, carefully bury the head, lest it should operate as an avenging charm or spell. Another long-standing hyena law includes the rumor that any beast looked at 3 times by a hyena will be unable to move, and the myth that the hyena can hypnotize both men and animals with the touch of its left paw. Some say that the hyena's appetite for carrion is so huge that it will empty itself forcibly by squeezing between 2 trees before going back for seconds. More menacingly, the hyena is widely believed to have the power to cast its spirits into others, including humans, causing them to become possessed. Among the Bedouin, even today, according to anthropologist Dan Bonner, there is a widespread belief in the hyena's power to lure away anyone walking alone at night. Like the vampire, the hyena becomes powerful only after the sun has gone down. When hit with vapors of the hyena's anal gland scent, according to Bedouin folklore, the person will no longer be able to exercise conscious judgments, and spellbound follows the animal's paths as if enslaved. In such tales, Bonner reports, the hyena's victims are hypnotized into believing the hyena is their master. One Bedouin reported an incident in which a relative who failed to appear at a scheduled time was found in a nearby valley with his head inside a hyena's cave, desperately trying to enter. Folklore is full of such dark spirits, and our fear of them is not so much the fear of bodily injury as the fear of things happening within our own bodies and minds over which we have no control. Many people, even those who have never seen one, admit to a certain uncanny feeling about the hyena, as though it were invested with some kind of supernatural power. Freud, in his essay on the uncanny, describes this feeling as a very particular sensation of dread and horror. The German word unheimlich, he explains, is obviously the opposite of heimlich, homely, the opposite of what is familiar. And we are tempted to conclude that what is uncanny is frightening precisely because it is not known and familiar. Animals that are tame and companionable to man, Freud points out, are considered heimlich. But not all wild animals are unheimlich. Only certain frightening creatures, of which the hyena is perhaps the most unmistakable. In the section of his essay, Freud reveals that uncanny is, In fact, something that is secretly familiar, something that has undergone repression and then returned from it. In other words, the Heimlich becomes a secret from a secret form of the unheimlich at the point at which things are brought to light. With this in mind, the uncanny nature of the hyena appears to be closely connected to its habit of unearthing dead bodies from graves and feeding on carrion. If premature burial is supremely uncanny for if premature burial is supremely uncanny if premature burial is a supremely uncanny phenomenon, then so is premature unburial, the bringing to light of the dead body, which is normally hidden from the consciousness and, like death in general, is rightfully repressed. The idea of the uncanny is closely related to the concept of animism, discussed at length by J.G. Fraser. In Totem and Taboo, a work closely influenced by Fraser's The Golden Bough, 1890, Freud explains how the assumptions of magic are more fundamental and older than the doctrine of spirits, which forms the kernel of animism. Magic, he explains, is the technique of animism that reveals in the clearest and most unmistakable way an intention to impose the laws governing mental life upon real things. This principle is clearly at work in the belief that the qualities of the hyena may be shared with anyone who possesses part of its invulnerable body. In his History of Animals, Aristotle informs us that people carry items made of hyena leather will not be attacked. The skin of a hyena head can cure headaches. The hyena's teeth will cure toothache when touched to the corresponding human tooth. And the hyena's gall, when applied to the forehead, cures ophthalmia. In the dark, especially when reflected by the light of the moon or fire, the hyena's eyes appear to flash red. If angry, they can seem black and opaque. These optical anomalies are no doubt the source of legends regarding the hyena's stone, mentioned by Pliny and repeated in various medieval bestiaries, as well as in Iranian folklore. According to legend, this shining many-colored talisman is found in the hyena's eye, and when placed under the tongue will reveal the future. In parts of Africa, the hyena is the equivalent of our black cat, the witch's familiar. To heighten their status in the community, witch doctors in Tanzania have been known to steal spotted hyena cubs from their den while the mother is away. In Tanzania, as in northern India, witches are said to travel through the night on the backs of flying hyenas, carrying gourds of hyena butter as torch fuel. In many African cultures, hyenas are associated with witchcraft and divination. Their hearts and livers may be vital ingredients in magic spells. In southern Senegal, among the Kujamat Diola people, hyenas are considered to be the close kin of lepers. Like the homosexual or hermaphrodite, the leper is regarded as a marginal figure generally symbolizing immorality, dirty habits, the reversal of normal activities, and other negative traits. If a Kujamat hunter kills a hyena, he must carry the carcass with respect to prevent the animal's malevolent spirit from taking revenge. As folklorist William Bascom explains in his work on West African Yoruba proverbs, sometimes hyena is a trickster, but more often he is the guile of his smarter acquaintance, hare. According to one story, during a famine in the bush, Hyena and Hare decided to sell their mothers off to buy millet. Hyena ties his mother up with a solid cord, but the clever Hare uses a fragile rope, allowing his mother to break free and escape. Hare pretends to be very sorry, and the two creatures will sell the hyena's mother instead and share the millet. Unless Hyena has ulterior motives, hyena mothers, remember, are notoriously tough. Superior intelligence is not a feature of the hyena's mythic counterpart. In pre-Islamic Arabic poetry, female hyenas are seen indulging in a wide range of transgressive behaviors, including eating those toward whom we usually recognize social obligation, their hosts, for example, or fallen enemies, as well as the sexual exploitation of fallen warriors. The 14th century Arab author al-Nuwari writes in his encyclopedic Nihayat al-Arab, the female hyena has a passion for digging up graves, and this is solely because of her craving for human flesh. It is her habit. When a slain man is left in a deserted place, and the corpse is swollen and the penis is engorged, to come up to it, then mount it and gratify her needs on it. Then she eats it. According to scholar Suzanne Stretkovich, the female hyena's supposed feasting and fertility in the face of death, laughing with delight, forms a direct contrast to the female human tradition of mourning, wailing, and abstinence. The Arabic verb meaning to laugh, is the same as the verb meaning to menstruate, which suggests this double entendre may be at the root of the pre-Islamic depictions of female hyenas as queens of disruption and degradation, rulers of the realm of waste. In some Arab cultures, both male and female hyenas are believed to menstruate, thereby breaching the boundaries of nature. Calling everything into question, the hyena, mistress of mayhem, disrupts our attempts at order, threatening and distorting our neat vision of the everyday world. Crucial to the hyena's shady reputation are the characteristic sounds made by the spotted variety. Sounds that we in the West describe as laughter, which, however, is only one interpretation of their sinister resonance. Aristotle, wide off the mark again, believed that the hyena made a noise that resembles the retching noise of a man vomiting to lure dogs within its reach, such dogs being unable to presumably resist the lure of human vomit. In other times and places, however, the hyena's vocalizations have been seen as attempts at human speech. These hideous brutes, as Pliny in his Natural History, are wont to repair to the shepherd's hut and imitate the human's voice, and even learn some person's name, who, when he answers to the call and comes out, is immediately torn to pieces. This fallacy has its roots in a passage in Aliens on the characteristics of animals. from the 2nd century AD, in which the hyena is referred to as the korokota. Says the author, I shall now relate to the villainy of the korokotai, of which I have actually heard. It conceals itself in the thickets, and then listens to the woodcutters calling one another by name, and even to anything they say, and then imitates their voices and speaks through the story, though the story may be fabulous, with a voice that sounds human at any rate, calling out the name which it has heard, and the man who has been called approaches. The animal withdraws and calls again. The man follows the voice all the more, but when it has drawn him away from his fellow workers and got him alone, it seizes him and kills him, then makes a meal of him, after luring him on with its call. Along with its eerie vocalizations, the social aspects of the spotted hyena's behavior mark out this haunting animal as a candidate for shape-shifting. A nocturnal scavenger feeding on the dead, the hyena inhabits the liminal zone between human and non-human, a time and place where occult forces prevail. According to Greek law, ghostly hyenas will sometimes haunt battlefields, where they'll drink the blood of dying soldiers. In the Near and Middle East, striped hyenas are generally regarded as physical incarnations of jinns. The Persian physician and cosmographer Zakaria al-Qazwini, in his 13th century treatise, Marvels of Creatures and Strange Things Existing, refers to a tribe called the hyena people, and informs us that should one of this tribe be in a group of 1,000 men, a hyena would be able to pick him out to eat. A Persian medical treatise written around the same time warns of a hybrid man-hyena, similar to a werewolf, that attacks people in the dark. In many societies today, in Ethiopia, Nigeria, and the Sudan, for example, the form of the hyena is considered mutable. At certain times and places, humans may become hyenas, and hyenas human. When considering such folklore, it is important to bear in mind that in many tribal cultures, the state of being human is widely regarded as part of a series of transitions, one of many possible states of existence that are not limited by birth and death. Humans with animal features are also known to be common images and icons in cultures that are going through the transition from hunter-gatherer societies to agricultural ones. Many of the gods and goddesses of ancient Egypt, for example, have a human torso and the head of a beast, whether crocodile, ibis, jackal, falcon, or cat. In Western Sudan, people tell legends of half-man, half-hyena man-eaters who shapeshift in the middle of the night and are reputed, like similar Western boogeymen, to prey on petting lovers. In their human form, these creatures often have a telltale hairy body and gleaming eyes. Similar figures appear frequently in African folklore. Anthropologist Alan F. Roberts, in his book Animals in African Art, reproduces photographs of hyena masks that are commonly worn by dancers in a number of African cultures. Roberts observes that people can become hyenas to play dramatic roles that usually run counter to social harmony or to the tenets of human civilization. In the guise of a hyena, ordinarily, civilized people can indulge in dirty tricks and nasty habits, invoking fear and disgust among the observers, who are thereby encouraged to avoid such habits in their own lives. In Sudan, such hyena men are reputed to live on the fringes of villages or in the space between two villages where they can keep a lookout in two directions at once. In the stories that are told about them, these hyena men are regularly defeated by either a man whose fiancée lives in one of the villages or a man whose fiancée is in both villages. The point of these stories, it seems, is to distinguish two kinds of alliances: the demonic, illegitimate alliance of man and hyena versus the consensual alliance of legal relations. Ethiopian Christians consider the Jews in their midst as Buddha, hyena people who cross the line between the human and the non-human. Sometimes, moreover, different kinds of hyena men can be seen in the flesh. In April 2004, a BBC report revealed that a shepherd living in the small town of Kabri Baya in eastern Ethiopia had trained a male spotted hyena named Ali for use as a livestock guardian dog. When the hyena feels the urge to mate, then there is the danger of it living in search of a female one. But I have already considered this, and I now put herbs in its food to reduce its sexual urge, said the shepherd, Sayyid Abdiweli Abdishakur. He apparently learned the secret from his father, who, he says, was knowledgeable about many things. Hyenas have been part of Ethiopian tradition for many years. In Notes from the Hyena's Belly, 2000, a memoir of growing up in Jijiga during the fall of the Emperor Selassie, author Nega Mezlekia recalls being told folktales in which hyena ended up as the dupe. He also recalls childhood games involving hyenas that lurked on the edges of town, such as chasing them and getting as close as possible to the park without blinking. Other games included throwing stones at hyenas, taunting them and encouraging them to enter the city at night to clean up the rubbish in the streets. Spotted hyenas are commonplace in the Ethiopian town of Harar, especially in the Old Town district, where they can be seen after nightfall walking down the streets and emerging from drainage holes. The townspeople tolerate and even feel affection for these suburbanized hyenas, which lurk all night long on the soccer fields, coming closer to the city walls at dusk to be fed. According to legends told to tourists, this tradition began after the great famine of the late 19th century, and it has continued so that in times of drought or hunger, the hyenas will remain on good terms with the citizens and will not maraud the city. However, the tradition of hyena feeding at the city walls actually began in the 1950s. There is an older tradition of feeding porridge to hyenas, but this takes place at shrines away from Harar. The current hyena man of Harar is Yusuf Mumi Saleh, who feeds the hyenas at the shrine of Ar Ansar. Better known, however, is a man named Mulugeta Walde Mariam, who took over from the last hyena feeder at Asumberi. Mulugeta's nightly ritual has become a popular spectacle for tourists and sightseers. Every evening at dusk, with only his car headlights for illumination, Mulugeta calls to the spotted hyenas that live just outside the city walls. Allegedly recognizing each animal by name as their luminous eyes begin appearing in the dusk. Mulugeta employs 3 men, one to feed the hyenas, one to collect money, and one to stock baskets of meat. He claims to know the animals individually and speaks to them in hyena language. Those familiar with local tradition, however, say that the names are made up on the spot and are different every time, They also say that Mulugeta's men throw rocks at the hyenas to prevent them from passing by the walled section of the road and entering the town until 9 o'clock each evening. At which point, when enough tourists have gathered, they dump meat outside the city walls and the hyenas are free to pass and go into the old town. For a fee of $5, Mulugeta will let tourists feed the hyenas, even even if they are brave enough, letting them hold a skewer in their mouths from which the hyenas take pieces of raw meat. Despite losing a finger, Mulugeta denies that his job is dangerous. While he has spoken of his plan to pass on his secrets to others so that the tradition will not die out, local claims that he guards his business jealously and will not tolerate anyone else trying to get in on his scheme. In Nigerian legends, witches can turn themselves into hyenas, a belief so entrenched within the traditional law of the Bornu people of the northeast that their language even contains a special word, Bultungin, which translates as I change myself into a hyena. Hyena-wise, in fact, Nigeria, like Ethiopia, is a particularly interesting place. In 2005, an anonymous Brazilian contributor to Scamorama, a website devoted to exposing Nigerian email frauds, sent in some pictures from Lagos, taken on a mobile phone of men walking muzzled hyenas down a city street. The photographer assumed that the men were either robbers, thugs, or debt collectors, adding, I don't know these guys, thank God, but one had an original gold Rolex, so he must do some kind of ugly business, I guess. These images, published on Scamorama website, attracted enormous attention, were circulated internationally and have been reprinted in various places, including the CD insert of the Gorillaz album Demon Days and the cover of Martin Cohen's book No Holiday, 80 Places You Don't Want to Visit, 2006. Wherever the pictures were published, it was broadly implied and often directly stated that in Nigeria hyenas were sometimes kept as pets or used as attack dogs, or were enlisted as muscle to help with criminal activities. The South African photographer Peter Hugo first came upon these photographs when they were published in his local newspaper under the headline, The Streets of Lagos. Fascinated by the images, Hugo decided to find out all he could about these ominous men and their muzzled companions. Through a journalist friend, he managed to track down a Nigerian reporter named Adetokunbo Abiola, who promised to introduce Hugo to the Gadawan Kura hyena handlers. After following a long trail, Hugo and Abiola made contact with the men, who were living in a shantytown in Day Junction, on the outskirts of Abuja. Hugo and Abiola tell their story in The Hyena and Other Men, 2007. Contrary to rumor, it turned out that the Hyena men were neither drug dealers nor debt collectors, but a family of traveling minstrels, a group of men and a little girl who entertained crowds with their three spotted hyenas, Jamis, Mainasara, and Gumu, 4 baboons, and a number of rock pythons. The Amadu family practiced a tradition handed down through generations of performing sensational, dervish-like feats such as walking on glowing hot coals and holding red-hot instruments in their hands. In addition to taming wild animals, the men sold samples of the amulets and herbal medicines that they claimed made them safe from danger. Hugo's photographs are not the first record of the Nigerian tradition of hyena men. Almost 100 years ago, an article by Major Arthur J. N. Tramian was published in the anthropological journal Man, entitled Nigerian Strolling Players. In this article, Tramian described the performers as clothed in a dress of patches and charms and accompanied by one or more hyenas, which were exhibited in order to collect money and frighten children. The people deny that there is any religious significance in it. Unlike the subjects of Hugo's portraits, which seem artificial and staged, in comparison, none of the performers in Tramian's photographs taken by W. A. Tramper acknowledged the camera. The man holding the hyena is fully turned away. They're pretty good photos, good people. These are the ones they're talking about. I don't know if you can see them. You can see some dude with the hyena. There's the hyena over there. Some dude is not paying attention. There's a hyena over there. The casual composition and textual framing of this image suggest a measure of spontaneity that Hugo's more carefully posed images clearly lack. In Hugo's account, Abdullahi Ahmadu explained to the journalist how his father had initiated him into the secret immunity from hyenas, a ritual that involved capturing and taming a hyena of his own. First, Abdullahi said, he both drank and bathed in a protective potion that made him invisible to hyenas. He then traveled with his family to the northern caves, and at night he followed his hunting dogs to a hyena's lair, where the man chanted magic incantations until the beast emerged. Abdullahi then blew clouds of tranquilizing powder in the animal's face. It struggled and fought, he said, but once the medicine began to work, it started to obey. The men's captured hyenas are kept in specially constructed boxes, muzzled and walked on thick, heavy chains. According to the Abdullahi, a hyena needs only 1 to 2 months of training in order to learn to live with humans and other animals, a process that involves the use of herbs, powders, amulets, and esoteric incantations. Some of these magic charms are placed inside a kayau, metal rings tied around the men's ankles that protect them from harm and help them to dance. The hyenas are fed on scraps purchased from abattoir, plus a dead goat every 3 days or so. We use a heavy stick to hit the hyenas on the head when they misbehave, said Abdullahi. We knock them down on the ground. All of us hold the sticks in case the animals become aggressive. The Gadawan Kura believe that their charms, concoctions, and incantations make them invulnerable to hyena attacks. One of Hugo's most disturbing photos shows Abdullahi's 6-year-old daughter, Mami, sitting astride the back of a large hyena. She cannot be harmed, said Abdullahi. She has taken a portion of traditional herbs and has been bathed with it. Her safety from the animals is guaranteed for the rest of her life. Here's that picture. He's talking about, let me show you guys. Let's see. There's a little girl sitting on a hyena. Little girl on a hyena over there. There's another photo of this dude. Probably seen it on the internet. It's a badass picture. In the streets, The hyena men play with their animals and sell charms to onlookers that allow men to do the same. These charms are also said to protect against the curses and spells that many Nigerians believe are responsible for their misfortunes. In some respects, then, the performance of the Gadawan Kura reinforces the hyena's reputation as hostile, evil, and possibly infernal in origin. In Hugo's photographs, the hyenas are bound with woven muzzles and attached to thick, heavy chains, and some of the men are depicted with sticks or clubs. The possibility of barely suppressed animal violence erupting is obviously what makes these hyenas compelling spectacles or effective partners in crime. Their role in the act is to behave like savage and untamable creatures that have temporarily become placid, thereby endorsing the power of the charms, potions, and amulets on sale. Significantly, however, Hugo notes that every one of the hyena's men had scars on his face, legs, and hands. In 2005, Hugo and Abiola spent 8 days traveling with the Gadawan Kura. They returned again in 2007 to take more photographs. The resulting images exhibited in galleries worldwide can also be seen on Hugo's website www.piertahugo.com. Interestingly, the photographer chose not to picture the men in the city streets where they plied their trade. Instead, he shows them posing with their animals in bleak wasteland settings, on a dusty back street, under a massive flyover, in a stretch of wilderness behind factories with broken windows. The titles of the photographs include the names of both the humans and animals depicted, along with a reference to the various cities in Nigeria where the images were taken. The portraits imply that a new kind of trans-species relationship is emerging in these bleak zones of poverty and uncontrolled urbanization. Critic Will Smith points out that the compositions isolate individual men and animals in otherwise depopulated landscape of shanty towns and highway overpasses. These are spaces in flux. Streets and concrete houses appear to be either under construction or already in ruins. The partial infrastructure suggests an equally incomplete consolidation of the codes and conventions of urban life. The choice of backdrop not only makes the hyenas seem all the more totemic, but also emphasizes the in-betweenness of the hyenas as well as their handlers. Both men and beasts, the photographs seem to imply, are unwanted creatures reduced to live in scavenging on the margins of society, living every day with simmering threat of repressed violence. As Smith explains, these images demand an understanding of political and social marginalization that can accommodate relationships and interdependency between humans and animals, even one as improbable as that between hyenas and men. Hugo's portraits provoke anxiety and unease. Nevertheless, the hyena men's distinctive dress, ankle-length gowns of decorative patchwork, faded tank tops, acid-washed muscle shirts, and vinyl flip-flops, was taken up by French fashion designer Olivier Baud in his 2010 Spring-Summer collection entitled Brutality in Pale Colors. The collection is inspired, according to the designer's press release, by the almost post-urban mood of the Pieter Hugo series, The Hyena Man, which features conversely tranquil and ferocious animals leashed at the neck and led by young men dressed in multiple layers of soft, used, dusty, pale-colored clothing. For those unable to afford the main items in the collection, the designer also offers hand-dyed linen tote bags printed with a sketch of a muzzled hyena slavering at the chops and a destroyed hyena tee, a threadbare, torn, shredded t-shirt printed with the same image, designed presumably to look as though it has been chewed up by a spotted hyena, which retails for around 150 pounds, probably more than the Gadawan Kura make in a year. Thank you for watching, good people. I hope you all have a good evening, a good night, a good morning, a good day, a good rest of 2019 if you're watching this in 2019. If you're watching in 2020, hello, welcome. My name is Martin Imoragewa Mureidi, and I was reading this book called Hyena by Mikita Brottman. It's a really good book. It's taught me a lot. I've learned that hyenas are not dogs. They actually are more related to cats than to dogs. So, learn something every day. Read a book every day, good people. I hope you all have a good day. Oh yeah, please comment, share, subscribe. Tell me what you thought about hyenas. Do you like them? Do you hate them? Are you neutral about them? I hope you all have a good day. Be blessed. Like, share, comment, do all those good things. And today is the 27th of December 2019. I will see you all tomorrow. I will be making another video, another live video, story time video. Adios, good people. Ah, whoa, whoa.